Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mothergood podcast. I'm really excited about our topic today and to have our guest, Catherine O'Brien, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And before we get into our chat today, I'd just like to ask you again if you could just subscribe to our episode and or rate it. It would help us so much. And if you would like to watch the video version of this episode, just look in the show notes and then you can just click the link to the YouTube. It's right there in the show notes. So pretty easy to find if you want to see us chatting in person. And with that, I would really like to welcome Catherine to the episode, who's also the author of Happy with Baby. She also has an Instagram page called Happy with Baby that I've been looking at, and it's super helpful. And so I highly recommend you go check it out. So Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Well, I'm excited to have you as well. And if you could just start off with telling everyone about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I have been for over 20 years. And my specialty is working in maternal mental health and a focus on new and expecting parents, which I've been doing for over 10 years now. And it was after the birth of our child, our oldest, he'll be 12, or he just turned 12, and our youngest just turned 8, that really opened my eyes to how difficult it was to add a baby to the family. I'd worked with families and kids over the years, and like intellectually I knew it. I mean, and I had experienced it with just, everyone else that I had worked with, but I was so I'm embarrassed to say like how naive I was to think like, oh, my husband and I have good communication, how hard could this really be to, and so I was really unprepared for bringing our son home and just the impact that it would have to be, tired and learning, a bunch of new skills and trying to meet the needs of our son. And it just, had an effect on our relationship. And so from there, I was like, am I the only one that's having a difficult time? I can't imagine that I am. And I would attend different moms groups and stuff and hearing other moms talk about their own struggles. And I was just like, gosh, we're just not prepared enough. I wish we were more prepared. And so I just began keeping some ideas of things like if I had known this or if I had known that together, and was given an opportunity to teach a workshop. And so from there, it's just kind of developed and evolved. And yeah, my passion is working, with new parents so that hopefully their struggle isn't as hard as my struggle was in the beginning.
Your story kind of reminds me of a meme I just saw recently that said, I was a perfect parent until I had children, which I'm sure all of us can kind of relate to. Like,
yes.
It's so easy theoretically and intellectually, just as you were saying, to have children, but then once you have children of your own, then it's a whole new ball game. So, I'm so excited to talk with you about these two topics, the, self-care after motherhood and also support matters, which I know is a topic that's really near and dear to your heart. So tell us, what exactly is self-care? Because there's a lot of information out there in social media, and also just a lot of information out there on what self-care is. I've seen some things on social media that are talking about, okay, well, taking a shower isn't necessarily self-care, right? Because that's just like a basic need. So right. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of misinformation, or not necessarily misinformation, but a lot of noise out there as to what self-care is. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear what you think self-care is.
Yes. So in my book, like I break it down into 3 categories. And the first category basically is about taking care of yourself, and like, what are you doing to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and getting your basic needs, everything from basic needs met to connection with other people. Like, what is it that you need that like fills your cup up, And so I think I hear what people are saying when they're like, oh, a shower is not self-care. But in some ways it is, right? Because I think those basic needs are self-care. We need more, indulgent, like other things too. Like some people like to go out and, get their nails done or their hair done. Or, some people are like, no, I just want quiet time to like read a good book, or, I want to connect with my friends, or, go for a long hike or do different things like that. So it's going to look different for everyone of what they need. but we also have to do the little things for ourselves, because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes I talk to moms and we're not even doing the little things,
Right.
like taking the shower.
Right.
I've talked to, several moms, throughout the years, and they'll say to me, it's like, how does my husband get a shower and I don't?
Right.
Well, how does he? Because he goes and takes it. Are you taking,
Exactly.
are you going to take it? Like,
Right.
why are you not doing it? And like feeling like we're waiting for like permission, or waiting for someone to, say, go ahead, or, hey, I'm going to hold the baby so you can shower. It's like, that's usually not going to happen. And we just have to take it. We just got to go and say, like, hey, it's my turn,
And
Um,
yeah, it's interesting that you brought up someone's husband that did that, because I have noticed that husbands do tend to be a lot better about that. And I'm not sure if it's just that husbands tend to be more of the default, or sorry, moms tend to be more of the default parent in
yeah.
general. I mean, I know every single relationship is different, but in general, from
Yeah.
what I've seen with other moms, that it seems like that the mom is a default parent, right? And so if the mom wants to do something, she more has to ask her spouse, hey, can
Mhm.
you watch the kids so I can do this? Whereas the husband just goes and does it, right? But it would be interesting experiment to see, what happens if moms just sort of go out and do it. But I'm with you, getting back to the self-care, I'm with you on self-care being just more basic needs. Because at least for me, if I do something just very basic, just such as take a shower, that I'm in a happier mood, right?
Mhm.
So, getting back
Right.
to
Like if we get those, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, getting back to the communication, since you mentioned it, that, that you said that before having a baby, you felt like you had really great communication with your husband. How do you recommend with your clients, and those who take your workshop, to have that communication after having a baby, so that you can get both the self-care that you need and then the support that you need?
Yeah. So like I said, in our book, we break it down into 3 sections. And that first one is that taking care of yourself. And the second one is like connecting with your partner. So we really recommend is like having those like regular check-ins with each other, um, daily, maybe a longer check-in on a weekly basis, but just like the things like asking each other, like, how are we each doing? What do we each need? And if we can do that, I mean, I think that really helps. Like, oftentimes, if the other person's not realizing what somebody else needs, or they're thinking like, well, I need this and they must need this. And we just have we have different needs and different things that are going on. So it's important to have those regular talks. And I think, like, for my husband and I in the beginning, we were doing the chores, we were getting the diapers changed, we were doing that stuff, but we weren't really connecting on how each of us was physically like coping or feeling and stuff like that, where we had time to do that. Like, we took for granted before those moments. And I know we would try to like wait to have dinner together at the end of the day, like when we were, like we normally were. And I remember it'd be like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, because you're like
Yeah.
doing all these things. And then, our son would start crying and one of us would be holding, and we're not even having those conversations then that we were really used to doing and doing on a regular basis. So it's like trying to figure out like how to work that in to your life, because I feel like we have to like schedule it,
Mhm.
after we have a child, or these things don't happen. And then you start to schedule it, and then it becomes more of a habit, and then it's like less of a thing. But if we're not making it intentional and putting it on our radar, like, I think it's not going to happen. And the baby fills up so much of everything. And so it's easy for it not to be focused on.
So, how, in a practical sense, do you see that happening? So, and also in your life, so you
Yeah.
realize that you're trying to have dinner every single night at the same time
Hmm.
together, so that you could have some moments yourself. But then the baby obviously was, you were
Yeah.
juggling the baby. How did you make that work to be able to put something on the calendar so that you were able to talk with each other?
Yeah. We ended up doing where when we got, like, we would both like be reunited in the day, is started like going for walks in the evening, before we got into all the chores and stuff. So I think it's like figuring out like what in your schedule would be realistic, and for us it was like, okay, we'd go for walks. The baby was with us, but it was like still we were able to talk.
Mhm.
And then um or we would, sit down and he'd be playing and we'd both sit there with him and chat for a while. And it doesn't have to, I'm not saying you need to be doing this for an hour every night.
Right.
I'm saying like take 5 to 10 minutes. Ideally, like a 15-minute check-in would be great, but giving each other a time to talk is important. And then maybe, when you have more time, like on the weekend or another day during the week, you spend a longer time checking in and just kind of, overall, like, how are things going? Are you struggling with anything? What's going well for you? What are you enjoying? What aren't you enjoying? And just having like the longer conversations, but having just those little mini ones every day are good.
How do you initiate those conversations? Because I know that you mentioned some questions to ask just right now, but I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes it's a little not awkward, but there does seem to be like a barrier to bringing up and initiating these conversations. Do you have any suggestions on lead-in tips? Because I know I've heard that women tend to be the ones that nurture the relationship more. So I feel like it's more on the women, not always, but it's more the women initiating these conversations. And then men in general, like I'm just generalizing here and don't tend to like those kind of conversations. So in terms, I
Yeah.
don't know, since you said that you've had, thousands of clients that you've guided through this process, what do you usually tell your clients on how to bring up this conversation? And then also if their husbands don't really like talking about stuff.
Yeah. So that's hard. So if they have a partner that doesn't want to. So that's where I think it's sometimes helpful, like if you're doing something else, right? Like going for a walk, because you can be talking about all sorts of different things. The focus doesn't have to be like, this is our relationship only talk, but you can like mix those conversations in there. And I think sometimes I'll even say this to my partner, like I miss you, like I want to spend time with you, or like,
Yeah.
how are things going? Like I feel like we haven't had these conversations, and in this last year we've spent more time with each other than ever.
Right.
And there's times where I feel like more disconnected because it's not like quality time together. So I think it's like being honest and saying, hey, like I feel like I really want to connect better, like understand like how you're doing. I'm missing you, or hey, can we make more of an effort to spend a little time every day with each other, what's and figuring out like what that is for each of you. And I've had clients that say like, because of how their schedules are, it's like they're kind of like two ships passing in the night, which
Right.
makes it hard. Like when are you're not going out for an evening walk, but it's like then, and ideally I'm not big on like having good conversations via text or phone or something like that. But if you need, if you have no other choice, it's like, hey, let's on your lunch break or on my lunch break, let's do a video chat, or at the very least, like a phone call, and just kind of check in with each other to see, what's going on. And you can have, the emotional piece of it, but then, just even logistical of things that need to happen. And, this is what I'm thinking, we need to plan to do around the house. What do you think about that? And having those back and forth conversations.
So getting back to the self-care, since I know that that's how we started off this conversation.
Sorry.
No, I'm the one that got sidetracked in the communication because I thought, oh, let's dive into that a little bit more. So getting back to the self-care, you mentioned that was the first topic in your book, is taking care of yourself. What are some things that you mentioned in your book on how to take care of yourself, especially, when your children are very young?
Yeah, I'm like, what do I mention in there? Well, it's like, making sure that your basic needs are met, making sure that you have people that are also supporting you, like that you're feeling connected. I oftentimes hear like being a new parent is isolating. I think this last year has even been that much more isolating because there's less, support, or we're more restricted and all those types of issues. So it's making sure that you have like different supports for connection, for knowing like, okay, like I'm not in this by myself. I'm not doing, I'm not alone. And then, making sure that you get like those bonus times too. Like one of the things, sleep is a big issue, right? Like you get a lot less sleep when you have a new baby, and they'll be like, oh, I just want to like sleep in. And the other partner's like, well, I really want to sleep in too. And it's like, okay, well, maybe like, each a day where one of you gets to sleep a little bit longer, even if it's like there's a, you're breastfeeding or something. It's like, okay, you breastfeed the baby and then my partner takes the baby and I get to lay down. Even if I'm not asleep, I'm resting. Like I get to just lay here a little bit longer while they go off and do something else. And then we alternate, another day so that we're both getting a little extra time where we're getting a little bit more rest, like whatever that looks like. And it shifts and changes. Like in those early days, like rest is so important and, we need sleep because we're not getting enough of it. And then as they get older and stuff like that, there's other things that we need more of. So it's just constantly like reassessing what that is. Though I think sleep never really goes away, but I'm like, I could always use more sleep, but
right. Exactly. Especially when you try to stay up after your kids go to bed. I feel like that's a real danger in there. So it's so tempting though, because you want to do some things or have some time to yourself, but then, yeah, there's that trade-off. So that's a good tip. I like that. So for sleeping in, maybe on the weekends, you and your partner can trade off to sleep in so that one of you can get a little bit more sleep. I really like that a lot. I know for me personally, just as you mentioned, like the shower is big. Showering is big. Mm-hmm. Eating is big, at least for me personally. I remember that when my daughter was at like a year old or something, I think around like the year old mark, that I was just basically catering to everything that she was, because, toddlers are really demanding, right? They can be demanding. Yeah. And I was just doing whatever she wanted. Basically, she was like the little princess that ruled everything, it's fine. But then it was at the expense of me not even making sure that I took the time to eat and sit down and eat. And I noticed that my health was suffering. I just felt super run down. And then I just decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and eat every meal, no matter what, because I wasn't even sitting down and eating. And then at first, my daughter wasn't really used to that, because she was just used to me catering to her every single demand, which is probably not a great idea. So when I was sitting down and eating, she didn't understand, like, hey, why can't you get me water right now? Like, why? Like, okay, at 10 minutes, 3 times a day, she can, be patient enough to wait. Sometimes it's even 5 minutes, if I've gotten a lot faster about eating, but 10 minutes, nothing's going to happen to her. She can wait 10 minutes. She's already eaten and had her snack or whatever. But I think she's more just used to seeing me like cater to her beck and call, that she was just saying, oh, like mom's sitting down, let's get her up again, or, something like that. But yeah, so shower and eating were big for me. And then also just getting dressed in clean clothes. Like they don't have to be fancy clothes, even if they're just like leggings or something. But for me, like clean clothes is something.
Putting clean ones on.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes. Clean clothes. Not even if it's super fancy, like even if it's just a t-shirt and leggings, just clean. Those 3 things, at least for me, that makes me happier. I don't know if you have some things for you that help really say it, make you in a better mood, but.
Yeah. Well, I think along those lines of like eating, right? Like I'll hear like, we're going out of our way to like, make baby food and do all these things. And then we're having like this scraps or whatever left over. It's like,
exactly.
while you're making them, like make yourself something, like show them, because it's like, I think it is important, right? It's important for your daughter to see, oh, look at mom's eating and taking care of herself. She's not doing everything, like we role model. We're role modeling for them constantly. And so if we're showing them how like, okay, this is how I take care of myself. This is how we do it. It does pay off. Maybe not in that moment as she's like maybe upset because you won't get her the water, but like it does pay off down the road. Like they will see that and it's like, oh no, I always sit down to eat. I don't, stand here and, cater to everybody else while you're all eating and I'm, taking care of you. Like I also am part of that.
That's so true. And it's interesting that you're talking about, the role model and just taking care of yourself and being that kind of role model, because I don't know if it's really a millennial mom thing or, I'm not sure what age range your clients are, but it's interesting that, the millennial mom and everyone in my age group tend to be the ones who are saying, oh, I'm a mom, like excusing away things like just getting dressed or taking a shower, those sorts of things. And then a few years ago, I saw a photo of my grandmother and she had 6 kids. I saw a photo
Mm,
of her and she was super put together with all of her kids who were like dressed really nicely. And she had her hair done, like it was all, looked really nice. She was wearing such a
mm-hmm,
really pretty dress. And then I was looking at more photos of her and she was always like so put together and looked nice. And she had 6 kids. She didn't have help. So I'm just wondering,
mm-hmm,
where is a disconnect? Like she obviously took time to put herself together, right? And she had 6 kids, no help. Um, why do you think we struggle with it so much more now? And, do you think it's more of a millennial mom thing? And then why are we struggling so much to actually take the time to take care of ourselves?
right. I don't know if it's just a millennial mom thing. I think one of the problems is we're doing more than ever, right? We
Hmm.
have working moms and stay at home moms and stay at home working moms, like all the things. And
Right.
we're doing everything. And studies show that we spend more time with our kids than they used to.
Mm.
So even if you're a working mom, you're probably spending more quality time with your child than maybe if you had a mother that was just solely at home, potentially. So there's like, yeah, there's studies out there that show that like we are spending more quality time. Like dads are spending more time with their kids too. Um, but moms are also, even though they're working from home, so we're trying to work from home, come home, and then do all the mom things and take our kids to activities, and they're in gym, from young ages. I have moms that are like, oh, the music class at like 3 months old, and the swim class, and then there's gymnastics, and they can barely walk, but they're doing, like we're doing like all these things. And it's, when would you
Right.
have time to do your hair and makeup? I know I feel like there are
That's
people
true.
that do that, but it's like, and I think it was like an event too, like, right, to have pictures taken back then was like,
Right.
we weren't
That's true.
selfieing all the time, sort of thing. We didn't have you had to develop
That's
that
a good
film, so
point.
you better look good in that picture. But I think we
That's
also
true. That's a
take
good
on a
point.
lot
I
more than
didn't
we
think
used
about
to.
that.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think we also take on a lot
That's so
more
true.
and put a lot
Hmm.
of pressure on
Yeah.
ourselves. Right. And like, I feel like there is this influence like, oh, well, all these people are doing these, or they seem to have it together. They're doing it. So I somehow that pressure that I need to do that too comes on.
I like that you mentioned the pressure. So, talking about that pressure, the self pressure, what do you usually say to your clients in terms of how do they evaluate whether or not something that they're doing is something that they really should be doing, or if they should take on
Mm-hmm.
more or less? How should a mom listening evaluate her own life to determine what she's doing is
Mm-hmm.
something that she really should be doing, or maybe she should just kind of take that off the table so she does have a little bit more time for herself, for self-care, or like taking a shower, those sorts of things.
Yeah. I think, right. Like, and I've had conversations with many clients about this. It's like, well, my friends were doing this, so I did it. It's a battle. Like every time I take my kid, it's like hard getting them in the car. It's hard getting them in the class. Then they don't want to leave. It's like everything is a struggle. And so, like, I'm thinking, is this like necessary? Is this what you find most important, or are you finding more joy when you guys just go for walks and go to the park? Which is easier. There's not that time commitment. There's not that. So I think it's like really evaluating, like, where do we want to focus our time? What what's most important for us as a family? Like, how do we, what does that look like for us? So my third question is like, what are you doing in the book is like, what are you doing to make sure you're connecting, bonding with your child? And
Hmm.
that one it's the third question, because I feel like it's the one we tend to focus on, I think, almost to the point where we do more and take away from our partner or do things like that. But I think it's also like, is the time I'm spending with my child good quality time, or is it just a lot of quantity time? And, I'm not happy doing any of these things. They don't seem to be happy. Like, we're running around, we're, going from one activity to the next, or, just constantly feel like there's not enough time, and what can I take off the plate? Like, what would feel better? What would feel more quality? And looking at that and what works for you guys as a family, because it's going to be different than your neighbor or the mom on Instagram or you or me, you know? So, and I think it's like, and it's all, it doesn't matter, right? It's what works for your family, because there's not like one right way to do it. And your child has different needs and they're going to need something different. And I think that was probably the best thing about having a second child for me, is realizing like, oh my gosh, you're completely different. And I have to totally like change my game and, you know, learn all these new things. But I think it was like good for me to know, is like, okay, it's less about me as being a parent as like their personalities too, and what they need and how I do things. So
I just went to the park this morning with my daughter, so I'm glad that you brought up that, because that's something that I realized too, at least during the pandemic, because before the pandemic happened, I was having my daughter in so many not like a ton of activities, but I was having her in like mommy and me ballet class, and then going to swim. Because I mean, I still think swim is really important. So I mean, I would probably do that one, but I don't know if all at the same time. But then it's the same kind of thing. Like, okay, like I'm rushed all the time going in and out the door. Like I don't really feel like I'm spending quality time with her for all, not that there's nothing wrong with those activities, but just looking back, I thought, well, maybe looking back, I would have just picked one at a time to do. So if swim was important because I wanted her to be water safe, then I'd probably just do that and just had that be that one activity for a while. And then once she's water safe, then maybe I could go to the mommy and me ballet, or maybe cycle through them, those sorts of things. But I mean, since the pandemic, and we've been forced to resort to more simple activities, I've realized that it's a lot more, some of them at least are just a lot more enjoyable, like going to the park and those sorts of things. So getting back to the communication with the self-care, and the reason why I keep on coming back to this communication, because I do have a handful of very new mom friends right now who have, been telling me that that's a really big struggle with the communication and the self-care, just so they can do things like shower, those sorts of things. So how do you recommend, let's say you need to take a shower, right? And then you and your partner need to juggle what you need to do in the evening after your partner comes from work, or you and your partner come home from work. How do you communicate in a tactile way that you need to take a shower and your partner needs to watch the kid?
Well, I think oftentimes we just need to be direct. So this is a common scenario, and tell me if either you've experienced this or one of your friends have told you. Maybe we'll just for simplicity's sake, mom's home, dad comes home, partner comes home, and she's starting to try to make dinner. The baby's like playing, maybe the baby's crying or fussy or whatever, and dad's like, "Okay, cool." And you seem to have it handled. You're doing all the things. And so he goes off to do who knows what. Like I laugh all the time because like I've had so many clients and their partners, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's built a shed, or he built, planters, or like rearranged our garage, or did all these things." Because he's like, "Well, I thought you had, I thought you had it, and I didn't want to like interrupt. Like you had a system, you had things working, and so I thought, if you needed something, you would tell me." And maybe he even asked, like, "What do you need?" And you're just like, because you're in the throes of it, you don't know. And you're like, "I've got it. I got it." And then you're kind of like resentful or frustrated.
You super mom too, or you don't want to seem like you're needy. I feel like that's kind of a lot of moms feel like that you don't want to say, "I need help." That, I don't know, there's some sort of barrier there.
Right. Well, you do need help. Like this isn't, you can't do it all on your own all the time, like it's not sustainable. It's not realistic, and it's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your partner's mental health if you're frustrated, and clearly not going to be good for your child's, so it's like, no, you need help. You need a partner, right? We used to have more community support back, in different cultures and stuff like that, still do, but we don't. Like we're in it by ourselves a lot of the time, and it's not good. And moms are really struggling, and of course they're struggling because this isn't a sustainable thing. So you have to be direct, and you have to tell them what you need. And maybe it's something that you decide, hey, like, you come home from work or we reunite at the end of the day. Maybe you're both working or whatever. Maybe you're both currently working from home or whatever. We reunite at the end of the day when we're, doing our own thing, and we figure out, like, what is it how's this evening going to go? Or maybe we come up with like, hey, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you do something for yourself. And on Mondays and Thursdays, I do, and Fridays, family night, or whatever. It doesn't matter, but it's like, you're having kind of like a little plan of how the evening is going to go. Like, I need to take a shower every time before you leave for work, because I know I'll function better during the day. Mm-hmm. Or when you get home, like, I'm going to need, 15 minutes to myself because it's going to be a long day. And maybe you text them on their way and say, like, it's been a rough day. Like, I'm going to need you. I need you to be prepared, like I said, I'm not big on text messaging, but little things like that, like, hey, it's been one of those days. I'm going to need you to be ready. So if it takes you 5 minutes extra because you need to decompress, so be it, but be ready because it's been a long day.
What about outsourcing different things that you need to get done? Because as I'm hearing you say everything, this is everything that my husband and I have been doing. But, when you're just juggling the kids and like the basic necessities of what you need to do, like shower, eat, like very basic, clean, sort of, the very, very basic things, then, we just find ourselves, okay, well, when are we going to have time to do these other things that are on our to-do list, or like these bigger things that are on our to-do list, like a deeper cleaning, or, when are we going to clean up all the toys? Obviously, we're working with our daughter to try to get her to do that herself. But I mean, she still needs help because she's still younger. How do you schedule in those other things that you need to get done? And as you said, we're the busiest that we've ever been in our society. So is a lot of that just unrealistic? Like, are you just supposed to kind of live in a low borderline level, like mess for the first few years of life? Or how does that get done? Like, outsource?
Well, I think, I mean, there's a couple of things. Yeah, you could lower your expectation, which for some people are like, I cannot have a dirty house. It has to be clean,
I know so
it's like
many moms
outsourcing,
are like that.
Yeah. I mean, and so I think sometimes, like, if you can outsource that, or you say, hey, on that Saturday, maybe instead of me sleeping in, I don't need to sleep in. Can you take the baby out for a walk, go to the park or whatever? And I just want to focus on cleaning. Or, hey, during nap time, can we just, like, each of us, like, pick 2 or 3 chores to do and just, like, knock those out together at the same time, so that, like, I'll feel better during the week. I think it's like figuring out, like, what works for you, what works for your family and you as a couple. And I think oftentimes if we can do things together, it makes it so much more enjoyable anyways. It's like, put on some music and, knock those chores out or whatever. And then you can have a fun evening and do some, when the baby does finally go to bed, you can sit and relax or whatever in your clean house, as maybe it's still clean. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I think it's also to know, it's like, it's not going to be like this forever. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah. It's like nothing's ever quite clean. And maybe today I clean the bathroom and tomorrow I clean the kitchen, but it's not all 100% clean all the time.
Right.
But it's not always going to be like this to where it's at a lower level. Like, my kids are at the age where now they're helping do chores and I'm not doing all the things. And it was magical when, my son was able to clean out the dishwasher. I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. Now, okay, like, I have to ask you several times and that gets annoying, but it's like, there are things that's not all like on your plate and like showing them too. So, it does get like some of those things do get better. I think it's deciding, like, what is the biggest priority, and do we, is it worth it to have somebody come in and clean it for us, once a month or every other week or whatever. So, or, temporarily, because right now, like, I know it makes me feel so much better if the house is clean, if nothing else. Right. And so this is where we want to put our money in to focus on it, because I know it will help my overall well-being. And again, maybe not forever, but for right now.
I've been telling myself that it's just going to last a few years, just as you were saying, because that's something that helps me kind of justify it a little bit, especially since I have a 5-month-old and then a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And my 3-year-old is
Yes.
oftentimes more demanding than my 5-month-old, ironically.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that really gets me through it. And then also it's just interesting that talking to my mom about it, that she said that when my sisters and I were younger, she would stay up until like 2 in the morning cleaning. And that's why our house was just always super clean, because she wanted to do like the homemade meals, and then she wanted to have the, spick and span clean house,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things. And then it's interesting now that now that we've all grown up, that just hearing her say how she would do some things differently, that she was, a lot of times when she would stay up late and the house was super clean, then when she didn't get enough rest and she was in not as great of a mood the next day, which basically happens to all of us moms, right? If you don't get enough sleep, it's human nature.
Right.
All
Yes.
of us are going to be
Not enough
grumpy.
sleep is not good for
Yeah, like tell me a single mom who's not
Yeah.
grumpy. I mean, basically, unless you're a saint, if you're a saint, then
Yeah.
okay, you can not sleep and you can not be grumpy. Okay, I would like to meet that mom who's that way, but I think that most of us would be grumpy.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just interesting hearing her say, like, I wouldn't have had as clean of a house. But then again, it's just for a few years. I just keep on telling myself it's just when they're young, right? It's just for the first few years of life, and then you can outsource or just lower your expectations. But I think getting back to what you were saying about having the plan earlier, when you're talking about, talking with your partner on how your evening is going to go, having a plan, those sorts of things, especially just like a few months having 2 kids, because before having 2 kids, we didn't really have to plan as much.
Yeah.
Planning really helps a lot. I feel like in terms of, self-care, getting the support that you need. And then also, I mean, because if you don't plan, then at least from what I've experienced so far, so I'm only speaking from
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, things don't happen. Like, so, one of the other things I'll encourage my clients to do is like once a week, you look at the calendar, right? And you look at all the logistical things like, oh, I've got to go to work early this day, or I have a meeting at this time. There's a doctor's appointment, whatever. Do we need to help each other? Do I have it handled? Does he have it handled? Do we need to call in support or whatever? But then I also encourage, when you're looking at that calendar, is like, you're also looking at like, hey, is there time for me to do something for myself? Is there time for my partner to do something for themselves? Where's our date?
Yeah.
I'm big on like a weekly date, and not saying this is you getting all dressed up and going out to dinner and a movie or anything. It's like, this is a date where we've got undivided an hour minimum time of, we're not on our phones watching a movie or anything, but we're talking, we're doing something fun. Maybe we're playing a game together, or, sitting out on the back porch, or whatever it is that you like to do, as a couple, but doing that together. And ideally, if you can go out, that you're able to go out, but like something that we're making time for each other every week to do. And you put it on the calendar, because if you don't, it's so easy for other things to fill in, or we're not prioritizing it. So it's like, oh, then if I wanted a sitter, I'd never called a sitter. And so then we're not doing anything, and we're laying down with the babies and going to bed ourselves. You know what I mean? So,
exactly. Yes. It does take planning, just as you were saying.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you don't plan for it, then it'll just unfold spontaneously, and it's not going to be very organized, or you're not going to get done what you want. Yeah. I know.
Well, and I like to tell people, like,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, like, I like to tell people, like, if you can pick a time, like this time every week, we do a date. Like, ideally, like if it's something you could do, whether we are doing it from home or we are doing it, we're going out. And when our kids were young, it was like, we'd wait till they went to bed, and they went to bed early, earlier. So then we could like have time together. And now it's like, now they're older, and they're like, please go out. They've been like waiting for us to go out for a year. They're like, are you ever going to go out again? Please leave the house. We want Nana to watch us, or whatever, but like they like love it. Like they expect it. Like that's our routine is, Saturday evenings. We've been fortunate that we've been able to do that. And like, having like a regular sitter or like a family member or whoever that watches. And then we're just deciding what we're doing. We're not having to like plan everything, but it's like, oh, if we somehow, even if it's like a monthly thing where it's like once a month, you have somebody that watches them and all you have to decide is what you're going to do with your time, I think is important. But making sure that you're putting that at your list of priorities is that connection with your partner. Because that's how we get, we need each other to do this.
Exactly. Yeah, I know some things that are coming to mind as you're talking. It just how my husband and I have been doing it recently with with the pandemic and restrictions and those sorts of things. We're in California too, so it's been pretty strict.
Oh, okay.
But like double stroller,
yes.
I highly recommend double stroller because when we strap in both kids and then we go on a walk in the evening, that even though no one's really watching the kids for us, it just gives us time to talk because they're strapped in. They can't go anywhere.
Right.
They're entertaining themselves because they're in the double stroller, and then we can talk, which is so nice. And then it's relaxing too. We get in some exercise, those sorts of things. Or another thing that we've done recently is when both kids are napping at the same time, which I know is sort of a miracle, but we're trying to make that happen more often.
Right. You're going to seize that miracle.
Yeah, exactly. That my mom has come over and she's just like, oh yeah, like whenever that happens, just text me, and I'll come over. And then just like for an hour, it's like the easiest babysitting job ever. It's just someone to sit in your house while both kids are napping. And then you just go like on a power walk, even if it's just a half hour. And then it sounds so silly, but when she has done that for us and we're just stroller free out of the house, it's just so nice, to have that little moment to ourselves. But I guess I'm just throwing that out there just as suggestions because I know that a lot of mom friends that I have, like some of them are good about having sitters and those sorts of things, but I know a lot are on a tight budget or have limited resources or their family isn't nearby, and then they're trying to figure out how to do that. So those are some things that we've been able to do. So I don't know if you have any other tips, those sorts of things, especially for moms who are like on a limited budget.
No, I think those are. Yeah, I think those are great. And, or like, if you're in a place too now where if you have like a friend and you guys can alternate, like, hey, we'll watch the kids tonight.
I like that. Yeah.
You watch, like that kind of like
perfect
co-op babysitting.
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend and they had this good situation with that. And there was 4 of them and they, 3 days a month, they got to go out and then they would watch the kids and it just like worked out so perfect for them. And I mean, I think that's like, another little miracle, but I think there are like other opportunities or like when they are sleeping, it's like, okay, like this doesn't, because they're sleeping doesn't mean I have to be doing chores. This means,
true.
Hey, let's do something fun together. Like, let's like take a class online or, that's one of the benefits I think to the pandemic is there's been so many new different types of classes you could take. Like, let's learn something new or let's do something fun or, let's just sit here and not do anything, but like hang out on the couch together and talk or just like lay here together, whatever,
And there is some value in just having leisure time. I know that especially in American society, because I think this is a very American thing, because when you go to Europe, I have family members who live in Germany. And so I know it's completely different there, their whole outlook on work and then leisure. Like leisure is just as important to a lot, not all Europeans, but a lot of them as work, that it's acceptable to actually take a vacation when you're, working somewhere. Like your employer doesn't look down on that as people feel the pressure here to do that. But I think that trickles over into our day-to-day lives too. It's like, just as you were saying, when the baby naps, we think we have to be super productive, but I think that's just really our culture, American culture mentality telling us that. And that sometimes we might even be more productive later on if we took that moment to recharge, tying it back into the self-care. If we just take a moment, take time for ourselves during nap time to recharge.
Right. Well, I think one of the things you hear all the time is, sleep and when the baby's sleeping. And I can't tell you how many moms will tell me, I can't sleep during that time. And I say, my thing is when the baby's sleeping, you rest. So even if you can't sleep, That doesn't
Okay.
mean that's the time to do all the things. It means I'm going to sit down, I'm going to lay on the couch, maybe I'm laying in my bed, you know, I like to say to avoid like electronic devices because that just kind of stimulates our brain and isn't really restful. But like maybe you read a magazine, maybe you look at a book or something, or you just lay there, you know, or maybe you go outside if you have it, you know, in your yard or something and just kind of soak in the sun and
Hmm.
take in nature or something and just rest out there and drink a cup of tea or do something restful because our bodies need that to recharge and get going. And sometimes even a good rest, even if you're not able to sleep while they're sleeping, just being able to rest can do you so much for your body. And you're right. Like we don't value that. And I like to tell people like, especially for, you know, I have work with a lot of moms and as a recovering type A personality myself is like, oh, if I have to see all the things that I've done to make me feel like I've accomplished something, but I'm like,
Yes.
just imagine, like,
Checklist.
think about in your little body, all the little cells and stuff that are recharging and redoing it and just visualize what they're doing as you're like
Mhm.
resting and they're getting time to really work and take care of themselves. So if you have to do that little visualization like,
Mhm.
oh no, your body inside is doing so much, even if you can't see it on the outside.
And just giving yourself the grace to be okay with that and let that
Yes.
go, which I know is super
Yes.
difficult to do. And then in the long run, as I mentioned, I really truly think that we are more productive when we do rest appropriately. One thing that comes to mind
Oh,
is,
yes.
I'm an attorney, so I had to take the California bar exam. And when I
Okay.
was originally studying for the bar exam, at first I said, okay, I'm going to take one day off a week. But then as I started getting stressed a few weeks in, because I thought, oh, there's so much material, like I'm never going to be able to make it through studying for
Mhm.
the bar exam if I take one day off a week. So 1 week, like a few weeks into studying for it, I didn't take my one day off. And like the very next day, I literally could not think. Like I sat down to
Yeah.
study. I couldn't even think, like I had zero focus. I just
Mhm.
couldn't think at all. And then it was a Monday because usually I was taking off every Sunday. And then it was a Monday, and I was like, you know what? That's it. I've been reading the same thing for the past hour. Like I haven't even been able to get past the sentence. I've been replaying this video over and over again. I'm never going to get. And then I just took off Monday. I'm like, that's it. I'm just taking off this Monday.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the bar exam that I was studying for, I made sure I took off one day a week, and then I passed fine. Like you would think that I would
Yeah.
need that extra day to study, but it was
Yeah.
actually more productive when I was refreshed and I took that
Right.
break. And I just bring up, I know it's kind of a little random topic to bring up, but I bring that back as an analogy because I just go back to that with motherhood too, that I always think about that. Like, okay, in my head, I think I should be doing this because then it's technically more productive because I'm doing this hour, but maybe not. You might get more done if you take off that hour and then do more later, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I can think of it. You gave that example, and I can think of a million similar examples for myself too, where it's like, oh my gosh, I did so much better. Or just even like when we go on vacation, you know, like I feel like I come back and feel so much more like recharged because we've rested and there's been less, you know, things that I have to do during the day. And I get so much more done and work is more enjoyable and my time with my kids is more enjoyable and with my partner and stuff. So I think there's so much to be said for the value of rest.
Definitely, definitely. So I know that at the onset, we were going to talk a little bit about support in the postpartum period, but I know what we've mostly been
Mm-hmm.
talking about self-care and communication and self-care also with your spouse, which is really
Right.
important. I know that we're running out of time, but I would love to talk a little bit about the support in the postpartum period and, how, as you describe in your book, can we get that support that we need?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to like the things that we were saying before is just that support in um, accepting help, right? And asking for help. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is asking for help. Like you had said, like being like, oh, that we're not super mom and that we can't do it all because you can't. But it's like people offer
Mhm.
support to us a lot. And I think that's like starting before, and I think we're so quick to be like, oh, I know I got it. Like even to our own partners, we'll do that. Like, oh no, I got it. And so one of my recent, just even personal experiences is my husband has like, both our kids were distance learning for over a year. I'm working solely from home, seeing clients virtually. My husband, goes into an office occasionally, but also has been working from home and stuff. So it's been a lot. And so, and every night, like I, try to make dinner, and some days are harder than others, depending on, how many clients I saw, or running to try to help my kids in between, sessions and that sort of thing. And finally I was just like, I can't make dinner every night. I can't do this. Like, why am I trying to do this?
Right.
And, then I'd feel guilty if it was like, I didn't do it and we're eating out or something. And so finally I was like, I need you to pick a day and make dinner. And he's like, okay. Cause that's not his thing. He's not, neither one of us were great cooks when we got together,
Yeah.
I've learned how to adapt. I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's one of the hard things with having kids, is like having to feed them 3 times a day.
Yeah,
But,
that's difficult for me too.
but now it's like, so he picked it, and he's been doing it. And the first couple weeks, the first time he did it, he didn't make enough food, and we're all like starving at the end. The second time it was really spicy, but it was like, I'm not going to critique. I'm not going to say anything. And it's like, and it's gotten better, right? Like, it's like, we have our learning curve.
Yeah.
I got the support I needed by asking. He's not judging me, saying like, you can't do it. You're not a good mom. The kids don't care. Like, they don't eat my food. They don't eat his food half the time, but so it's like being able to like ask for support and take in the support, and not critiquing necessarily what we're getting, but accepting it as it comes, and figuring out where we need it. Is it support we need to have someone come in and clean our home? Is it support we need, calling up my girlfriend because I'm having a hard day and I can't do this, and get that reassurance? Like, what is, and I think it's that constant of like, as you check in with each other as partners, but then also for yourself, is like, how am I doing? And what do I need? Like, what do I need right now? I need emotional support. No, I need to like lay down and rest because it's been a long day and I've had all these new things I'm trying to figure out, or the learning went bad, and, figuring out this distance learning stuff, and then needing support around that because this is not my thing, and asking questions to people and realizing people are offering to help in different ways, and learning how to take that. And I think that that's probably been one of the biggest things becoming a mom for myself, is learning how to take in the support that's being offered, because it's such a gift, and we can't do this alone. And I'll tell couples all the time, because I'm big on like doing it like a postpartum plan, and they'll be like, well, we have each other. And I'm like, your partner is not your postpartum plan. Like, you both need help. You're both going to need support in different ways. And like, let's look at the full picture and figure out what that looks like, because each other is not enough. We can't do it like this by ourselves, So it's in figuring out where it is, but then being willing to take in the support that is being offered.
So what do you tell, couples that do come to you with that kind of situation in the postpartum support period, who don't necessarily have family around, or they have a limited budget? What advice do you usually give in that kind of situation?
Yeah. So, like, ideally they do have family support or can afford like a postpartum doula or something like that. But even just finding other ways to take things off their plate is like looking at like, how are we going to do, like, let's set up our grocery list so that we're not having to like run out and go to the grocery store. Like, what are things that we can like simplify stuff to make our lives easier postpartum? Like, let's put some meals in the freezer, or, hey, these people at work are offering something. It's like, okay, like, what would be realistic, helpful things that we'll need and that we could spend, that on, people put together like meal planning, or I had a client that put together this whole spreadsheet one time of all the things that she knew she was going to need help. And then like when people would ask, they would just like put their names in it or whatever. Or I'll tell people, like, put a list together of all the things you need to do. And so when somebody does come over and they ask like, oh, what do you need? Or how can I help you? And you're like, I don't know. And I'm quick to say nothing, it's like, well, this is my list of things I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're willing to help me with something on there, that'd be awesome, And oftentimes people will be more than willing to help you out.
I like that idea of having a list, because I remember a lot of people were asking me initially. And of course, you obviously need a lot of help. But then when people ask you, at least for me, I always felt like I was dumbfounded. Like, I don't know. What do I need right now?
Yeah. And I think because you're so tired and like as everything is new, like your brain can't really like it's like this like fatigue that's not able to function and be like, oh yeah, this is what I need. So I'm like, just keep like a running list of the things that you either do on a daily basis or know that you need, and as it comes into your mind is like write it down or whatever.
I like that a lot. And one thing that I've been doing recently with my husband too is the shared notes on your phone. Mm-hmm. So I'll make a note, or my husband will make a note. And then I didn't realize that you could do this, but you can share the note with them so that as you both are editing the notes, it edits automatically on the other person's phone, or you can like check mark it off, which is so
good.
I mean, that's been like a game changer for us, because especially like with grocery lists, right? So you're talking about like getting organized with grocery lists. So we'll just like make a grocery list. And then as we're thinking about what we need, we're like, okay, we need more milk. You put milk on the shared notes. And then my husband's been doing the grocery shopping. So then when he goes out, he can go in and out really fast, because then he has that list and then we know everything. I mean, it's not perfect. Like we miss things. It's like, it's helpful, and I don't know. I'm just but
it's better than what it could be.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think it's brilliant, because it's better than all of a sudden him like, well, I'll go to the grocery store. What do you need? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what I need, because I can't think right at this moment, that you want to go to the grocery store. Exactly. But like if you have something like that, I think it's so much helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. We have had some of those moments too, when he'll go like a little bit earlier than we're planning. So he'll be like earlier in the week. It's like, okay, like I'm going to go. What do we need? I'm like, I don't know. I can't even think of anything, but. Well, great. I've enjoyed our conversation so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on our show. And I'd love to ask you the last question that we always ask every single guest on our show. And that's in line with our motto that there's no way to be a perfect mom, but many ways to be a good one. And I'd love to hear a personal story of yours of a time that you realized that for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I have like a specific, like this exact thing, or it's kind of specific, but I can't remember what the scenario was. But like, I remember feeling just really, whatever had happened, like feeling like I'm not really doing a good job as a mom, or feeling like I'm failing, like my kids don't like my dinner every night, or whatever it is. And then, my youngest like came up to me just kind of out of the blue and was like, Mom, you're just the best mom ever. And I love you so much. And just like gave me like this big hug, just kind of like out of nowhere. And that happens like randomly, which is like amazing. And it always makes me pause and think like, they don't need me to be perfect. I mean, they're not critiquing me like I'm critiquing myself, or like feeling like I have to do all the things and, have friends that moms put on like these perfect birthday parties. I don't. Like I'm always like procrastinating, or, like my skills are not somebody else's skills and vice versa, but they don't need that. They don't need me to do all the things in all the ways and be perfect. Like they love me for me. Then they're probably much better at, loving me sometimes than I do myself. But it's like, it does make me pause and think like, okay, like I need to see myself through their eyes, because that's what's most important.
I love that so much. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story, and also for all of your wisdom today. I'm sure everyone listening just is taking in all those tips and going to implement them in their day-to-day lives. So thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again so much for having me. I really enjoyed my time with you.
Thank you. Oh, and before I forget, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So my website is Happy with Baby, and I'm on, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, all at Happy with Baby. And yeah, I would love for you to follow me. And then our book is, you can buy it on Amazon or anywhere you can buy a book, as Happy with Baby Relationship, my essential relationship advice when partners become parents.
Great. Yeah. See, my postpartum brain almost forgot that. So I'm glad I asked. So
Yeah,
thank you so much
that's
again.
okay.